The champagne had turned bitter in my mouth the moment I saw my wife Dana's hand lingering on Victor Lane's shoulder. 28 years of marriage, and she chose our son's wedding reception to resurrect her old flame like some twisted phoenix rising from the ashes of our shared life. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Harold Keaton, 55 years old, senior accountant at Morrison & Associates, and until tonight, I thought I knew exactly who I was married to. The woman in the shimmering blue dress across the country club ballroom, laughing too loudly at Victor's jokes, touching his arm with practiced intimacy. That wasn't the Dana I'd built a life with. Or maybe it was, and I'd been too blind to see it. "Dad, you okay?" Miles, my 28-year-old son, still glowing from his wedding ceremony, appeared at my elbow with concern etched across his features. He had my eyes, but Dana's quick wit, though thankfully he'd inherited my sense of loyalty instead of her wandering attention. "Fine, son, just watching your mother work the room." I kept my voice steady, but inside, something cold and calculating was crystallizing. 28 years as an accountant teaches you to notice discrepancies, and Dana's behavior tonight was a glaring red entry in the wrong column. Victor Lane, used car dealer, silver-tongued snake, and apparently the road not taken in Dana's romantic history. I remembered him from high school, quarterback, class president, the kind of guy who peaked at 18 and spent the rest of his life trying to recapture that glory. Now he stood there in his expensive suit, probably financed through his questionable business practices, whispering something in my wife's ear that made her giggle like a teenager. "She's just being social, Dad. You know how Mom gets at parties." Miles tried to sound convincing, but I caught him glancing toward his mother with the same troubled expression I probably wore. The country club buzzed with post-ceremony energy. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white linen, and the scent of Dana's floral arrangements, orchids and roses, her specialty, filled the air with cloying sweetness. She'd insisted on doing the flowers herself, claiming it would save money and showcase her shop's work. Now I wondered if she'd chosen this venue because she knew Victor would be here. His daughter had married into the Henderson family 2 years ago, making him part of the country club's inner circle. "Harold, darling, come meet someone." Dana's voice cut through my dark thoughts. She approached with Victor in tow, her cheeks flushed with wine and something else I didn't want to name. "You remember Victor Lane from high school, don't you?" Victor extended his hand, with the practiced smile of a man who made his living convincing people to buy things they couldn't afford. "Harold Keaton. Heard you've done well for yourself. Accounting, right? Always were good with numbers." I shook his hand, noting the expensive watch, the manicured nails, the subtle cologne that probably cost more than most people's car payments. "Victor. Still selling cars, I hear." "Lane Premium Auto. We specialize in luxury pre-owned vehicles." The way he said it made used cars sound like rare art pieces. "Been very successful. Just bought a new house on Maple Ridge, you know where all the old money families live." Dana's eyes sparkled with interest. "Oh, how wonderful. I've always loved those historic homes. So much character, so much potential." The way she said potential made my skin crawl. I'd heard that tone before, usually when she was eyeing something expensive she wanted me to buy. But this felt different, more personal, more dangerous. "You should come see it sometime," Victor said, his gaze lingering on Dana just a fraction too long. "Both of you, of course. I'd love to show you around, maybe over dinner. I make a mean barbecue." "That sounds lovely," Dana replied before I could speak. "We'd love to, wouldn't we, Harold?" I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. Text message. I glanced down and felt the world shift beneath my feet. The message was from Victor's number, but it clearly wasn't meant for me. "Can't wait to get you alone tonight. Tell Harold you're helping clean up. I'll pick you up at midnight behind the kitchen." My hands remained steady, Years of handling sensitive financial documents had taught me to control my physical reactions, but inside, I felt something fundamental break. Not my heart, exactly. More like the last thread of whatever had been holding my marriage together. I looked up to find Victor patting his pockets with mild confusion. Damn phone. Always sending messages to the wrong people. Technology, right? Dana was watching me with sudden wariness, as if she sensed the shift in atmospheric pressure that preceded a storm. Harold, you look pale. Are you feeling all right? Never better. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile, but it was genuine. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt completely, crystallinely clear about what needed to happen next. In fact, I think I'll head home early. Let you handle the cleanup, Dana. You always were better at handling things. The emphasis on those last words wasn't lost on her. Her eyes widened slightly, and I saw the exact moment she realized her carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. Harold, wait. But I was already walking away, nodding to guests, shaking hands, playing the role of the gracious father of the groom making his exit. Inside, though, I was already planning. 28 years of marriage, and I knew every financial thread that held Dana's life together. Every account, every credit card, every business expense that flowed through our joint finances. She wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that accountants don't just balance books. We know exactly where every penny comes from and where it goes. As I reached my car, I pulled out my phone and started a new document. At the top, I typed, Ledger of Wrongs, Dana Keaton. Then I began itemizing everything she'd cost me over the years. Every expensive whim, every business venture I'd funded, every debt I'd covered. By the time I finished, she'd understand that some prices can't be paid with batting eyelashes and empty apologies. The game was just beginning. Monday morning arrived with the crisp efficiency I'd always appreciated. While Dana presumably nursed a hangover and whatever guilt she might possess, I sat in my home office at 6 a.m., surrounded by financial documents spread across my desk like battle plans. 28 years of marriage generates a lot of paperwork. Joint accounts, shared credit cards, business loans I'd co-signed for Dana's floral shop, insurance policies, investment portfolios, all of it flowing through accounts where my name appeared first. My credit score carried the weight, my steady income provided the foundation. Dana had never been particularly interested in the details of our finances. "You're so much better with numbers, honey," she'd always said, waving away my attempts to involve her in budgeting or financial planning. "I trust you to handle all that boring stuff." That trust was about to become very expensive for her. My first call went to our bank. "Hi, this is Harold Keaton. I need to discuss some changes to my accounts." The conversation took 45 minutes and left me feeling grimly satisfied. Our joint checking account, now my checking account. The savings account that funded Dana's shop expenses. Frozen pending review of business expenditures. The credit card she used for her personal expenses, canceled due to security concerns. By the time Dana stumbled downstairs in her silk robe at 10 a.m., I'd already restructured our entire financial relationship. "Morning, sweetheart," I said pleasantly from behind my newspaper. "Coffee's fresh. How was the cleanup last night?" She poured herself a cup with shaking hands, avoiding my eyes. "Fine. It was fine. Just, the usual post-wedding mess." Must have taken quite a while. I didn't hear you come in." I was quiet. Didn't want to wake you. She sat across from me at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared breakfast for over 2 decades. The morning light streaming through our bay window caught the lines around her eyes, the slight smudging of yesterday's makeup she hadn't quite scrubbed away. "Thoughtful of you." I folded my newspaper and smiled. "By the way, I took care of some financial housekeeping this morning. Consolidated a few accounts, updated some security settings. You know how it is. Identity theft is such a problem these days." Something in my tone must have alerted her because she looked up sharply. What kind of housekeeping? Oh, just boring accounting stuff. Speaking of which, I've been reviewing the expenses for your shop. Interesting numbers. I pulled out a manila folder thick with printouts. Did you know that over the past 5 years I've invested approximately $87,000 in blooming designs? That's not including the monthly rent subsidies, utility payments, and equipment purchases. Dana's coffee cup rattled against its saucer. Harold, what are you getting at? Just thinking it might be time for the business to stand on its own feet. You're always talking about independence, following your dreams, that sort of thing. So I've decided to help you achieve that independence. I slid a document across the table. This is a formal loan agreement for all the money I've invested in your business over the years. Standard terms, 7% interest, monthly payments of $1,500, with the full balance due in 5 years. You can't be serious. Absolutely serious. Oh, and I've also prepared invoices for some other expenses that I think should be reimbursed. The flowers for Miles's wedding, for instance. Since you used them to showcase your business, that was really a marketing expense, wasn't it? I shouldn't have to pay for your advertising. Dana stared at the papers as if they might burst into flames. Harold, this is insane. We're married. We share everything. Do we? I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Because I got the impression from last night that you might prefer a different arrangement. More freedom to pursue other interests. The color drained from her cheeks. I don't know what you think you saw. I saw enough. I stood up, straightening my tie. I'm late for work. Oh, one more thing. I've canceled the credit cards. Security reasons, you understand? If you need anything, you'll have to use your own accounts from now on. My own accounts? Harold, you know I don't have. Then I guess you'd better figure something out. Maybe Victor can help. He seemed very generous last night. I left her sitting at the table, staring at the loan documents with growing horror. The drive to work gave me time to plan my next moves. Dana's shop, Blooming Designs, operated on razor-thin margins. Most of her clients paid on credit, and her cash flow depended entirely on the financial cushion I provided. Without access to our joint accounts, she'd be scrambling by the end of the week. At Morrison & Associates, I threw myself into my work with renewed energy. Numbers had always made sense to me in ways that people didn't. Debits and credits, assets and liabilities, everything balanced eventually. It was just a matter of patience and precision. Around noon, my phone started buzzing. Dana, of course. Harold, you have to stop this. I can't access any of our accounts. They're my accounts now. We discussed this. I have payroll to meet, suppliers to pay. You're going to destroy my business. Your business should be able to support itself. That's how businesses work. Please, can we talk about this reasonably? I'll come to your office. I'm very busy today. Maybe we can discuss it tonight. If you're home, that is. I know how much you value your flexibility. I hung up and returned to the quarterly reports I was reviewing for a client. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days helping other people organize their financial lives while my own marriage crumbled around me. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was taking control instead of just reacting to whatever crisis Dana had created. By 5 o'clock, I'd received 12 more calls from Dana and 3 from her business partner, Sonia Firth. I ignored them all. Let them scramble. Let them realize exactly how much their independence was going to cost. The drive home took me past Victor's car lot. Lane Premium Auto proclaimed itself in gaudy neon letters, and I could see Victor himself standing next to a gleaming red Corvette, probably trying to convince some poor fool that a 10-year-old sports car was a classic investment opportunity. On impulse, I pulled into the lot. Victor's face lit up when he saw me approaching. Harold, great to see you, buddy. Still thinking about what I said last night? About that dinner invitation? Actually, yes. I've been thinking about it quite a bit. I walked over to the Corvette, running my hand along its polished surface. Beautiful car. Is this yours? My pride and joy. 67 Stingray, completely restored. She's not for sale. This baby's going to be buried with me. Interesting philosophy. Tell me, Victor, what do you think about marriage? Something flickered in his eyes. Well, times change. People change. Sometimes what seemed like forever turns out to be more flexible. I nodded thoughtfully. Flexible. That's an interesting word choice. I pulled out my keys and, before Victor could react, dragged them along the Corvette's passenger side, leaving a deep, jagged scratch in the pristine paint. What the hell? Oops. I examined the damage with professional detachment. Victor, I've been thinking about flexibility myself lately, and I've realized that some things, marriage vows, business partnerships, trust, they're not actually as flexible as people think. They're more like contracts. And when someone breaks a contract, there are usually penalties. Victor was staring at his car in horror, his face cycling through shock, rage, and something that might have been fear. You're insane. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Tell them Harold Keaton damaged your car because you're sleeping with his wife. I'm sure that'll make for interesting gossip around town, especially when your own wife hears about it. I walked back to my car, leaving Victor standing next to his damaged Corvette like a man who'd just watched his house burn down. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of him in my rearview mirror, frantically examining the scratch as if he could will it away through sheer desperation. When I got home, Dana was waiting in the living room with red-rimmed eyes and a stack of bills spread across the coffee table. Harold, please. We need to talk. I'm listening. This has gone too far. Yes, I made a mistake last night. Yes, I've been confused about some things. But destroying my business isn't going to fix our marriage. I sat down across from her, noting how she'd chosen her words carefully. A mistake, confused, not admitting to the affair, just acknowledging some vague wrongdoing. What exactly are you confused about, Dana? About us, about what I want, about whether we're happy. And Victor helps clarify these things for you? She flinched. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. For a moment, I thought she might actually be honest. Her mouth opened, and I saw something real flicker across her face, guilt maybe, or genuine regret. But then her expression hardened into the manipulative mask I'd grown to recognize over the years. I think you're having some kind of breakdown, Harold. This paranoia, this financial abuse, it's not like you. Maybe you should talk to someone. And there it was, the deflection, the gaslighting, the attempt to make me the problem. 28 years of marriage, and she still thought she could manipulate me with the same tired playbook. I stood up, straightening my tie again. It was becoming a habit, that small gesture of control in an increasingly chaotic situation. You're right about one thing, Dana. This isn't like me. The old Harold would have swallowed his pride, made excuses for you, maybe even blamed himself for not being a better husband. But that Harold was an idiot who didn't understand that some people mistake kindness for weakness. I headed toward the stairs, then paused. Oh, and Dana, you might want to check with your suppliers tomorrow. I think some of your accounts might be experiencing technical difficulties. Her gasp followed me up the stairs, but I didn't look back. I had phone calls to make. The next morning brought the kind of chaos I'd been anticipating. Dana's phone started ringing at 7 a.m. and didn't stop. Suppliers demanding payment, clients asking about delayed orders, her business partner Sonia calling every 15 minutes with increasingly frantic updates. I dressed for work with methodical precision, listening to Dana's side of the conversations through our thin bedroom walls. I don't understand. The payment should have gone through automatically. No, please don't cancel the order. I can get you a check today. What do you mean the account is frozen? By the time I came downstairs, she was pacing the kitchen in her bathrobe, her hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Harold, thank God. I need you to call the bank. There's been some kind of mistake with the business account. No mistake. I poured myself coffee from the pot she'd forgotten to turn off. I transferred the funds to cover some of those outstanding loans we discussed. What loans? Harold, you're talking nonsense. That money belongs to the business. Money I provided to the business. Money that was never formally documented as a business investment versus a personal loan. I've been reviewing the paperwork with my attorney, and it turns out I have significant legal claim to those funds. The lie came easily. I hadn't spoken to any attorney yet, but Dana didn't know that. And technically, it wasn't entirely a lie. I did have legal claim to money from my own accounts. Your attorney! Her voice climbed an octave. Harold, what is happening? Yesterday you were a normal person, and now you're talking like some kind of corporate raider. Yesterday I thought I was married to someone who respected our vows. Turns out we were both operating under false assumptions. My phone buzzed. Text from Miles. Dad, Mom called me crying. Says you've lost your mind. What's going on? I typed back. Everything's fine. Just some business discussions with your mother. Nothing for you to worry about. Dana was watching me with growing desperation. Who was that? Miles. Apparently you've been sharing your version of events. I'm scared, Harold. You're acting like a stranger, like someone I don't know at all. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the text message meant for Victor, the casual way she'd touched his arm, the years of taking my financial support for granted, while she pursued her dreams and, apparently, her old flames. Maybe you never knew me as well as you thought. I picked up my briefcase. I'll be working late tonight. Don't wait up. At the office, I made good on my implied threat from the night before. Dana's business operated on credit with most of her suppliers, credit that was guaranteed by our joint assets. A few phone calls to explain that I was reviewing all business relationships and couldn't guarantee payment on outstanding orders was enough to send ripples through her small network of vendors. I also called our insurance agent. Hi, this is Harold Keaton. I need to discuss the coverage on my wife's business. There might be some changes to our financial situation, and I want to make sure we're not overexposed. By lunch, Dana's world was collapsing in real time. Her phone calls became increasingly desperate, her voice hoarse from trying to explain to confused suppliers why orders were being canceled and payments were being questioned. Around 2 p.m., Sonia Firth showed up at my office. I'd never particularly liked Sonia. She was Dana's business partner and closest friend, a sharp-featured woman in her early 50s who always seemed to be whispering conspiracies and grievances into Dana's ear. She had a way of making every conversation feel like a negotiation, every interaction like a power play. Harold. She didn't wait for an invitation, just walked into my office and sat down across from my desk. We need to talk. About what? About whatever midlife crisis you're having and how it's affecting innocent people. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. Sonia had always dressed expensively. Designer clothes, jewelry that cost more than most people's monthly salary. For someone who co-owned a struggling floral shop, she lived remarkably well. Innocent people? Dana's business employs 4 people, Harold. 4 families who depend on those paychecks. Your little temper tantrum is going to put them on the street. My temper tantrum? Whatever you think Dana did, destroying her livelihood isn't going to fix your marriage. It's just going to make you look petty and vindictive. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder I'd been preparing. Interesting that you mention livelihoods, Sonia. I've been reviewing the books for Blooming Designs, and I have some questions about the financial management. Her expression didn't change, but I caught a flicker of something, wariness, maybe fear in her eyes. For instance, I continued, flipping through the papers, there are several large payments to S. Firth Consulting over the past 2 years. What exactly does S. Firth Consulting do? Business consulting, marketing strategies. I help Dana with the aspects of running a business that she finds challenging. To the tune of $37,000 over 2 years? That's quite a lot of consulting for a business that barely breaks even. Sonia shifted in her chair. I provide valuable services. I'm sure you do. Tell me, what's your background in business consulting, your education, your previous experience? I don't have to justify myself to you, Harold. Dana and I are partners. We make decisions together about how to run our business. Except it's not your business, is it? I mean, legally speaking. Dana owns Blooming Designs. You're listed as a consultant and occasional employee. Yet somehow, you seem to have significant input into major financial decisions. I pulled out another document. Like this lease agreement for the new storage space. Signed by Dana, but the paperwork lists you as the primary contact for the property management company. Interesting arrangement. What are you getting at? I'm getting at the fact that someone has been giving Dana very expensive advice about how to run her business and manage her marriage. And I'm starting to wonder what the motivation might be for that advice. Sonia stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. Dana was right. You have lost your mind. Maybe, but I haven't lost my ability to read financial statements or to ask questions about unusual business relationships. After she left, I sat back in my chair and considered what I'd learned. Sonia's defensiveness had been revealing. So had her expensive clothes and jewelry, her apparent influence over Dana's business decisions, and the way she'd immediately jumped to Dana's defense. I made a note to dig deeper into Firth Consulting and its relationship with my wife's business. Something didn't add up, and after 28 years of balancing books, I'd developed a nose for financial irregularities. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly until my phone rang around 4 p.m. Harold? Dana's voice was barely above a whisper. I need to come see you. Please. We have to stop this before it goes too far. I'm busy. Harold, I'm begging you. 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes to explain. Something in her tone, genuine desperation, maybe even fear, made me reconsider. Fine, but make it quick. She arrived 20 minutes later, looking like she'd been through a war. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her makeup smeared, her hands shaking as she sat down across from my desk. Harold, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. I'm listening. I made a mistake, a terrible, stupid mistake. But it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. She took a shuddering breath. Victor and we've been talking. Just talking. About old times, about what might have been. It was stupid and selfish and wrong, but it wasn't. We didn't what? We didn't sleep together. We were going to. That night, after the wedding. But when you left early, when I saw the look on your face, I couldn't go through with it. I called him and canceled. I studied her face, looking for tells, for the little signs that had always given away her lies. But she seemed genuinely distraught, genuinely remorseful. So you were planning to cheat on me, but you didn't actually do it. Is that supposed to make me feel better? I'm trying to be honest with you. For the first time in months, maybe years, I'm being completely honest. Yes, I was attracted to Victor. Yes, I was feeling trapped in our marriage, like we'd become strangers living in the same house. But when it came down to actually betraying you, I couldn't do it. And I'm supposed to forgive you for almost cheating? I'm asking you to understand that marriages go through difficult periods, that people make mistakes, that destroying everything we've built together isn't going to solve anything. I leaned forward, studying her face. What about Sonia? What about her? She seems very invested in your marriage problems, very quick to take your side, very concerned about your business decisions. Dana frowned. She's my friend, my business partner. Of course she's concerned. Is she? Or does she have other reasons for wanting to see our marriage fail? What are you talking about? I'm talking about $37,000 in consulting fees. I'm talking about someone who lives well beyond what a floral shop partnership should provide. I'm talking about someone who might have her own agenda when it comes to your personal life. Dana stared at me as if I'd started speaking a foreign language. Harold, you're scaring me. This paranoia, these conspiracy theories. This isn't like you. No, I agreed. It's not. The old me would have accepted your explanation, maybe even apologized for overreacting. But the old me was a fool who didn't pay attention to the details. And the details, Dana, tell a very interesting story. I stood up, signaling that our conversation was over. Go home. Think about what you really want from this marriage and what you're willing to sacrifice to get it. Because right now, you're about to lose everything. She left without another word, and I returned to my research into Firth Consulting and its very interesting relationship with my wife's business affairs. Friday evening found me at Brad's Tavern, a dive bar on the wrong side of town where the beer was cold, the music was loud, and nobody cared about your personal problems. Brad Ross, the owner and my oldest friend, was working the bar himself, as he did most nights. You look like hell, Harry. Brad slid a beer across the scarred wooden bar. Rough week? You could say that. I took a long drink and let the familiar atmosphere wash over me. Brad's place was the opposite of the country club where this whole mess had started. No crystal chandeliers, no linen tablecloths, just honest working people trying to forget their troubles for a few hours. Dana still giving you grief about the business thing? I'd given Brad the abbreviated version of my marital troubles, leaving out the more embarrassing details about Victor and focusing on the financial disputes. He'd listened with the patience of a man who'd heard every sob story in the book. It's complicated. Marriage usually is. You want to talk about it? Before I could answer, the tavern door opened and 3 men walked in. I recognized them immediately. Tom Bradley, Steve Morrison, and Jeff Chen, guys I'd known for years through various social circles, golf partners, occasional drinking buddies. They'd always been Dana's friends more than mine, part of the country club crowd that she aspired to join. They spotted me at the bar and exchanged glances before walking over. Tom, a real estate developer with political ambitions, took the lead. Harold, we need to talk. About what? About what you're doing to Dana. Steve Morrison, no relation to my boss, owned a chain of restaurants and had the soft, pampered look of a man who'd never missed a meal. We heard about the financial stuff, the way you're trying to destroy her business. My business? I corrected. My money, my investment, my decision about how to handle it. Come on, man. Jeff Chen was a lawyer, smooth and articulate, the kind of guy who could make a parking ticket sound like a constitutional crisis. We all know marriage is complicated, but what you're doing is vindictive. It's beneath you. Brad was listening from behind the bar, polishing glasses with mechanical precision. I could feel his attention even though he wasn't looking directly at us. Interesting that you're so concerned about my marriage, I said. What exactly did Dana tell you? That you've had some kind of breakdown, Tom replied. That you're punishing her for imaginary slights, freezing her out of accounts she needs to run her business. Imaginary slights? Harold, we've all been married long enough to know that couples go through rough patches. But you don't handle it by trying to destroy your wife's livelihood. I finished my beer and set the bottle down carefully. Tell me something, guys. How long have you known about Victor? The 3 men exchanged glances again. Jeff cleared his throat. Known about what? About my wife's relationship with Victor Lane. About their little reunion at Miles's wedding. About their plans for a midnight rendezvous. Harold, I think you're reading too much into... I'm reading text messages, I interrupted. I'm reading body language. I'm reading 28 years of marriage to a woman who apparently thinks I'm too stupid to notice when she's planning to cheat on me. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Look, even if something happened, even if Dana made a mistake, that doesn't justify what you're doing now. You're going to destroy her business, put people out of work, all because of some wounded pride. And there it was. The casual dismissal, the assumption that my reaction was disproportionate to Dana's mistake, the implication that I should be the bigger person, should forgive and forget, should go back to being the reliable husband who paid the bills and didn't ask uncomfortable questions. You know what I find interesting? I stood up, facing the three of them. None of you seem surprised by any of this. None of you are shocked that my wife was planning to cheat on me, which makes me wonder, how long have you known? How long have you been covering for her? Harold, you're being paranoid. Am I? Or am I finally paying attention to things I should have noticed years ago? Steve stepped closer, trying to loom over me with his extra 50 pounds and 3-inch height advantage. You need to stop this, Harold. Dana's a good woman who made one mistake. Don't destroy your marriage over it. My marriage was destroyed the moment my wife decided to hook up with her old boyfriend at our son's wedding. I'm just handling the paperwork. Listen, you stubborn bastard. Brad's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Gentlemen, I think you've said enough. Steve turned toward the bar. This is none of your business, Ross. Actually, it is. Brad set down his bar towel and walked around to our side of the bar. At 52, he was still built like the cop he'd been for 20 years before opening the tavern. See? Harold's been coming to my place for 15 years. He's a friend, and I don't like seeing friends get bullied. Nobody's bullying anybody, Jeff said smoothly. We're just trying to talk sense into him. 3 against 1 in my bar, pressuring a guy about his personal business? That sounds like bullying to me. Tom's face was getting red. Harold, you need to think about what you're doing. Dana has friends in this town, people who care about her, people who don't appreciate seeing her treated badly. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. You keep this up, and you're going to find yourself very isolated, very alone. I looked at the 3 of them, men I'd known for years, shared drinks with, played golf with, considered friends. Now they were standing in a dive bar, threatening me because I'd had the audacity to object to my wife's infidelity. You know what? You're right. I am going to be alone. Because apparently, all my friends were really Dana's friends. All my social connections were really her social connections. All these years I thought I was building relationships, but I was really just the guy who paid for her to build relationships. Harold, that's not... It is, though, isn't it? When's the last time any of you called me just to hang out? When's the last time we got together without Dana organizing it? When's the last time you gave a damn about my opinion on anything that didn't involve my wallet? The silence stretched out uncomfortably. Finally, Jeff tried to salvage the situation. Look, Harold, we're trying to help here. We care about both of you. No, you don't. You care about Dana because she's charming and social and makes you feel important. You care about me because I'm useful, the reliable husband who picks up the check and doesn't make waves, but you don't actually care about me as a person. I pulled out my wallet and threw a 20 on the bar. Thanks for the beer, Brad. And thanks for the clarity, gentlemen. It's good to know where everyone stands. As I headed for the door, Tom called after me. Harold, you're making a big mistake, bigger than you know. I turned back. The only mistake I made was trusting people who didn't deserve it. But don't worry, I'm a quick learner. Outside in the parking lot, the cool night air felt like a blessing after the suffocating atmosphere inside. I sat in my car for a few minutes, letting the reality sink in. Not only had I lost my wife, I'd apparently lost most of my friends too. The social network I'd thought was mine had been Dana's all along, and they'd chosen sides without hesitation. My phone buzzed. Text from Brad. Those assholes are gone. Come back if you want. First beer's on the house. I smiled for the first time in days. At least I still had one real friend. But as I drove home, Tom's words echoed in my mind. You're making a big mistake. Bigger than you know. It sounded like more than just social isolation. It sounded like a warning. When I got home, Dana was waiting in the living room with red-rimmed eyes and a stack of legal documents. Harold, we need to talk. I filed for divorce. I looked at the papers she held out. Official documents, lawyer's letterhead, the formal dissolution of 28 years of marriage reduced to legal boilerplate. Quick work. I can't live like this. The financial abuse, the paranoia, the way you're trying to destroy everything I've worked for. I won't be held hostage in my own marriage. Financial abuse? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I provide the money, you spend it, and when I ask questions about where it goes, that's abuse. You're trying to control me by controlling the money. That's textbook financial abuse. And cheating on your husband is textbook what exactly? I told you nothing happened with Victor, but even if it had, that wouldn't justify what you're doing now. I took the papers from her hands and flipped through them. Standard divorce filing, irreconcilable differences, requesting spousal support, and division of assets. Her lawyer had done thorough work. Spousal support, I noted. Interesting. You want to divorce me, but you still want my money. I'm entitled to half of everything we built together. Everything I built, everything I paid for, everything I worked 60-hour weeks to provide while you played with flowers and flirted with old boyfriends. That's not fair, Harold. I contributed to this marriage too. Did you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you contributed drama and expenses while I contributed everything else. She stood up, clutching her robe around herself like armor. I'm not going to argue with you anymore. The lawyers can handle it from here. Good idea. Let's let the lawyers sort out exactly who contributed what to this marriage. Let's put it all on paper. Every dollar, every debt, every financial decision made over the past 28 years. I think that'll be very educational for everyone involved. As she headed upstairs, I sat down with the divorce papers and started making notes. Dana wanted to play hardball? Fine. But she was about to learn that accountants don't lose financial wars. We just win them more slowly and more thoroughly than anyone expects. The community center's annual charity auction was Millfield's social event of the year, a chance for the town's elite to display their wealth while feeling good about supporting local causes. Dana had insisted we attend every year, and she'd spent weeks preparing for this one before our marriage imploded. Now, standing in the decorated ballroom surrounded by people who'd made their loyalties clear, I felt like a gladiator entering the arena. The difference was, I'd come prepared for battle. Harold? Margaret Henderson, the mayor's wife and unofficial queen of Millfield society, approached with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. So good to see you. How are you holding up? Never better, Margaret. Beautiful event as always. Yes, well, we do try to bring the community together. Speaking of which, I hope you and Dana can work through your difficulties. Marriage is such a sacred institution. I couldn't agree more. That's why adultery is so devastating to the community fabric, don't you think? Her smile faltered. I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Of course not. Excuse me, I see someone I need to speak with. I made my way through the crowd, noting the whispered conversations that stopped when I approached, the way people's eyes followed me with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. Dana was holding court near the auction tables, surrounded by her usual circle of admirers, looking elegant in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Sonia Firth stood beside her, whispering something in her ear that made Dana laugh. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in weeks. They made quite a pair, the grieving wife and her loyal friend, playing their roles to perfection. Victor Lane lurked near the bar, trying to look casual while avoiding eye contact with anyone who might know about his scratched Corvette. His wife, Patricia, stood beside him with the brittle smile of a woman who'd learned not to ask too many questions about her husband's activities. The auction began with the usual small items: dinner certificates, weekend getaways, handmade crafts donated by local artisans. I bid on nothing, just watched and waited for the right moment. It came when they announced the evening's featured item, A luxury spa weekend for two, donated by the prestigious Willowbrook Resort. The bidding started at $500 and quickly escalated as the town's power couples competed for the prize. $1,000, called Tom Bradley. $1,200, countered Steve Morrison. $1,500, Dana said clearly, her voice carrying across the room. She glanced at Sonia with a meaningful look that wasn't lost on me or, apparently, several other observers. The bidding continued until Dana won at $3,000, money she didn't have for a prize she couldn't afford, to impress people who were already whispering about her crumbling marriage. That's when I made my move. I walked to the front of the room and approached the microphone. The auctioneer, confused but recognizing me as a longtime community member, stepped aside. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for a moment." The room fell silent. Dana's face went white. "I know this is unusual, but I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for their support during this difficult time in my marriage." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Margaret Henderson was making frantic gestures from the front row, trying to signal me to stop. "You see, it's been educational to learn who your real friends are when crisis hits. For instance, I've discovered that my wife's business partner, Sonia Firth, has been providing what she calls consulting services to my wife's floral shop." Sonia was staring at me with undisguised horror. $37,000 worth of consulting over 2 years, to be precise. Quite expensive advice for a business that barely breaks even. I started wondering what kind of consulting could be worth that much money. "Harold, stop." Dana's voice cut through the silence, but I ignored her. "So I did some research. Turns out S. Firth Consulting has some interesting business practices. For example, did you know that Sonia has been systematically overbilling my wife's business for services never rendered? Did you know she's been skimming money from vendor payments and pocketing the difference?" "That's not true," Sonia shouted, but her voice cracked. "Oh, but it is. I have documentation. Bank records, forged invoices, altered contracts. Sonia's been stealing from my wife's business for years, and she's been using that money to fund her rather expensive lifestyle." The crowd was buzzing now. I could see people pulling out their phones, recording the drama for social media posterity. "But here's the really interesting part," I continued. "Sonia didn't just steal money. She stole something much more valuable. She stole my wife's judgment. You see, Sonia's been in love with Dana for years, obsessively, desperately in love, and she's been systematically poisoning my marriage to try to break us apart." Dana was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Harold, please, not here." "The affair with Victor Lane? Sonia orchestrated that. She's the one who told Dana that I was having an affair, a complete lie designed to make Dana feel justified in seeking comfort elsewhere. She's the one who encouraged Dana to reconnect with old boyfriends. She's the one who's been whispering poison in my wife's ear for years, trying to destroy our marriage so she could have Dana for herself." Sonia broke. "You don't understand. Dana deserves better than you. She deserves someone who appreciates her, who understands her. Someone like you. Yes, someone like me. I've loved her for 20 years, watched her waste herself on a man who treats her like a business expense." The silence that followed was deafening. Then the whispers started, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Sonia seemed to realize what she'd just admitted to, and her face crumpled. "Dana, I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" But Dana was backing away from her, horror and betrayal written across her face. You told me Harold was cheating. You showed me those photos. Photos I staged, because I knew you'd never leave him otherwise. You destroyed my marriage based on lies. I was trying to save you from a marriage that was already over." Victor chose that moment to try to slip out the back exit, but I wasn't done. "And Victor, don't think you're off the hook. Tell everyone how much money you borrowed from my wife's business account. Tell them about the gambling debts you used her credit to cover." Victor froze at the door. "I don't know what you're talking about." $43,000, Victor. Transferred from Dana's business account to cover your debts at the casino. Money you promised to pay back but never did. Money that came from my accounts to cover your gambling addiction. Patricia Lane stared at her husband with dawning horror. Victor, you told me you'd stopped gambling. I did stop. This is all lies. I have bank records, Victor. I have copies of the transfers, signed authorizations with your forged signature on Dana's business documents. Should I keep going? The room erupted in chaos. Patricia was screaming at Victor. Sonia was sobbing. Dana was standing in the middle of it all, looking like her world had collapsed, which I suppose it had. I walked back to the microphone. Oh, and one more thing. That spa weekend Dana just bid $3,000 for, she bid with money from an account that was closed yesterday, so I guess the Hendersons will need to find another winner for that prize. I left the microphone and walked toward the exit, the crowd parting before me like the Red Sea. Behind me, I could hear Margaret Henderson trying to restore order, but the damage was done. By tomorrow morning, everyone in Millfield would know exactly what had happened to the Keaton marriage and who was responsible. Outside in the parking lot, I found Miles waiting by my car. Dad, what the hell was that? That was the truth, son. Something this town hasn't heard in a long time. You destroyed Mom in there, publicly humiliated her. Your mother destroyed herself. I just provided the documentation. Miles stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. This isn't you, Dad. This isn't who you are. No, it's not. The man I used to be would have suffered in silence, would have let them steal from me and lie to me and cheat on me without fighting back. But that man was a fool. And what are you now? I got in my car and rolled down the window. I'm free, Miles. For the first time in 28 years, I'm completely free. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades, the satisfaction of a perfectly balanced ledger. Every debt paid, every wrong accounted for, every lie exposed to the light. Dana's car wasn't in the driveway when I arrived. Neither was Sonia's. I suspected they were somewhere having a very difficult conversation about truth, lies, and the price of deception. I poured myself a drink and sat in my home office, surrounded by the financial documents that had started this whole war. Tomorrow, the lawyers would sort out the details. The divorce would proceed, the business would be dissolved, the assets would be divided. But tonight, I was exactly where I wanted to be, alone, vindicated, and finally free from the web of lies that had trapped me for so long. My phone buzzed. Text from Brad. Heard you gave quite a speech tonight. Drinks are on me tomorrow. I smiled and typed back, looking forward to it. Outside, it started to rain, washing the streets clean for a new day.